everyone, today I wanted to make a tutorial on how I use the free software Gimp to edit images. Now, if you haven't come across my channel before, I'm an independent author and I use this software when I am producing children's books. So I'm no artist, I work with illustrators, and the books that I've made so far, what's happened is that the artists have produced the artwork and then sent it to me. I have then digitized the work using either scanning, photography, or a mixture of both, and I will link a video about that below. And then I ensure on my laptop that the artwork looks on my screen how it does in person, and that's what I'm using Gimp for. It's really, really important that you don't change anything about the artwork. That is the intellectual property of the artist that produced it. If there is any reason why you might change something a little bit, so for instance, I used a part of an illustration and had some sort of edits to it digitally that then I used for a back cover of a book, and I went back to the artist and double checked that that was going to be okay and sent them the artwork and got their agreement because it is their artwork. Or any other context where you might need to change something or use the artwork in a slightly different way, always go back to the artist. It is their work. And for me, what I'm going to talk about in this video is about ensuring that the artwork looks how it was intended, not about changing anything. You shouldn't be doing that. So, and if, like I said, if you do need to for any reason, go back to the artist and speak to them about it. It makes for the best author-artist or author-illustrator relationship if you communicate really well and you are really respectful of each other's creative intellectual property. Anyway, I'm going to go over to my laptop screen. I'm going to give you a walkthrough of the different tools I use and how I use them. I'm not an expert in this. This is all self-taught through tutorials and reading stuff on the internet. I'm going to go through how I do things. It works for me, so hopefully it's helpful for you. You're going to see that I'm using some of the artwork from my books, from the illustrator and artist Rhiannon Thomas, who I work with a lot. In fact, on every book except one, I've worked with Rhiannon Thomas, and we have ongoing projects together. So I'm going to show you how I work with her artwork as an example, and she's given me permission to use her artwork in this way. Do check her out, I'll link her below. Anyway, over to my laptop screen.
Okay, so here we are with the program open, and the first thing I'm going to do is to drop an image. I've popped them into my downloads. So this is the one that I want to use first. This is from my book Milk and Cookies, and this is a photograph. So I'm going to show you, if you've used a photograph, how to brighten it up, basically. So what you do is you go into here where it says Preferences, into the sort of Gimp menu, and in Preferences you want to have a look at where it says Appearance, and make sure that this padding colour is white. So mine's already set as white, but yours might not be. So in these two, you want to go in and choose white. That then means that you have got a pure white to compare these areas with. It's also helpful to remove the boundary. So I'm going to do this and remove the layer boundary. So now what I can do is go into my tools, colours, and go into levels, and then I can view this histogram and remove all this, which is kind of the murkiness in the white. So I'm going to move this arrow down and keep going until the white on my image matches the white of the background. Obviously, I'm going to be showing you how to do these things relatively quickly, so if I were doing it in real life, then I would be very careful that I'm doing it accurately. So you can see on this photograph, it was photographed very flat. There is an ever so slight shadow in this corner, but it's really not much of a problem. And what I can do is go in with the eraser tool, which is here, and use this to just clean up this little white area here. It's very, very difficult to get photographs completely flat, but yeah, the whites are where it's going to show, so I can just tidy that up there. to give you another example, then I'll show you what a scan looks like. So yeah, that one was from Milk and Cookies. Let's show you a different image. So this is one of the scans from Lily the Limpet Gets Lost. This is by Yevgenia Blackery rather than Rhiannon Thomas, so a different illustrator on this project. This artwork was scanned rather than photographed, so you can see the whites are already very, very white. Even if I remove that layer boundary, I don't need to brighten this. Now, what was interesting about these ones is that the scanner was grubby. So if I zoom in, can you see all of the, so I mean obviously there's pencil marks and things, but there's kind of dust and bits. Hopefully you can see that. So what I do, and I do this with all of the scans just to make sure, just in case there are any artifacts, and it's important that what you're not doing is removing marks that the artist has made. But what I do is I go over the whole piece and I make sure that it is cleaned up in terms of the digitization process. So the first thing I need to do actually is to select the area. So I'm going to zoom right out, make sure that I've selected the piece of art. I'm going to have to go out a tiny bit more. Selection. Just select the whole area, don't need to be precise about that. Then zoom in to 100% and I will start in one corner and I will work my way along with the healing tool. So this is the healing tool. I use a Mac. In order to select, I press Command click and I choose an area that's got the kind of texture that I want. I can then look at any marks and obviously looking at the actual piece of artwork to make sure that I'm not removing anything that I shouldn't. I can then just click on any areas where I think that that needs to be healed. You can change the size of the brush if you feel that you need to, and I just methodically work over the whole piece and remove any bits that need to be removed, so like a little hair there, and carefully make sure that anything that is from grubbiness, which this one was, all the pieces, the scanner wasn't totally clean. I just had to clean it. So yeah, again, be wary, don't clean up things that are actual part of the artwork, but yeah, work over it and just clean it up. For me on these, well, oh gosh, that was a really good piece. Well, okay, this illustrates my point. It was all of these in the sort of white areas, these little marks that needed to be cleaned. So yes, more methodically than I'm doing right now, I'm going to remove any bits. This is a pencil mark. So yeah, being careful, you can clean it up. Okay, so I'm going to now show you one of the pieces from my most recent project with Rhiannon Thomas. This is from Captivating Kelp Forest. So this is one of the more recent pieces that I've worked on. So again, we can remove that layer boundary if we want. Okay, so when I'm working on a new piece of art, one of the first things that I want to do is to make sure that all of the black lines are sharp enough. I've noticed sometimes that they aren't. It lacks crispness, whether it's scanned or photographed, particularly when it's photographed and particularly depending on the lens that's used and the focus on different areas. Anyway, a scan tends to be fairly flat, so I can choose any area. And what I'm going to do is go into filters. You will have seen I selected the area there. Going to filters, not filters, is it? I'm trying to remember where it is. Oh, it is in here. Enhance, sharpen. So for the sharpen, you saw that sharpened right up. Now this all looks a bit grainy. So what I'm going to do is play with the settings a little bit. And I want to make sure that those black lines are nice and sharp. In fact, I do want the radius a bit higher. Have that crispness, but without everything appearing grainy. So be careful. I'll give you an example if I go to town with this. Hopefully you'll see. Well, I don't know why this is having to think. There we go. Hopefully you can see, obviously, that if you really overdo it, it's going to look horrific. So, and you can't do that. This is all about making sure that the picture looks how it should. So ensuring that the lines have that sharpness. On a scan, you're probably not going to have to do this very much. On a photograph, you may have to do this a little bit more. So, yeah, I get to a point that I want. You do have this preview tool. I want that a little bit sharper than it is. Oh, I don't know why this is having to have a good think. Let's have a look. And I think it's the amount. I need to go up a touch. And anyway, when you're happy, what you have the option to do is to take the preview off and see what difference you've made, which can be helpful as well. You also have the option of a split view, so you can have a look and go, okay, am I happy? So if you do need to sharpen up these lines very, very carefully, don't overdo it, you can use the sharpen tool. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to show you is if I wanted to select a particular area. So if I'm sat with the piece of art next to me and I notice that, I don't know, this starfish here it's not quite the right colour. This looks quite orange. Let's say that actually it was meant to be quite red. You need to do this with the piece of art next to you in good light. Do it really, really carefully. And obviously when the piece is printed, have a look again to make sure that you have done it right. You cannot be changing things. So let's say I want to change this little starfish. So I zoom right in. Then, all right, so I've zoomed in on my starfish and then I'm going to choose the free select tool. And very carefully, I'm going to do this quite quickly, but if I was doing this for real, I would select this area with a lot of care. You can either click or you can drag to select the area you want to work with. So once I'm happy that I've selected the area, and you should see it come up here, then what I can do is go into tools. Sorry, I didn't mean tools, I meant colors. You have lots of different things that you can do. So one thing is curves. Curves is a very interesting tool where you can change the brightness and various different hues. It's worth having a little play and see what each bit does. Choose different points. You can see I can change the yellows and the reds and the lightness and the darkness in amongst there. You can see there's lots and lots that I can do. So you can have a little play with curves. You can always reset. You can always preview. You can always split view. So all those things to see what you're doing. Actually, I would say that I more often use colour balance. So in colour balance, let's say I wanted this to be more red. So I go, okay, I'm going to make this a little bit more red, and I'm eyeballing this with the piece next to me. I'm not really, but in real life I haven't got the piece of art next to me. I've given it back to the artist. But let's say I do that and I go, yeah, that's how it should look. Or I go, oh, that doesn't look right at all. Maybe it's more of a magenta. So I could do that. Ah, yes, that looks how I wanted. Or it might be that actually the problem is not that it's too orange, it's too yellow. So maybe I need to go back into the blues. So you can tweak all these different colours with the piece next to you and see what, how you can set that just right. Sometimes through scanning particularly, the colours aren't quite right. With photography, they tend to be better. So you can go into all the little areas where you think that just doesn't look how it does in real life, and you can tweak the colours. Again, not to change them, but actually to make them like the original piece. We're being true to the artist. We are not changing what the artist did. So that's how you can do that and change the colour. You've got lots of other tools as well if you needed to change the brightness or whatever it is that you might need to change. So let's go back to the original unselected image, and I'll give you another example of something that you can do. So on this particular one, this little boy's face was quite white here in a way that the original wasn't. I don't know how well that's going to replicate on this screen recording. So again, I can select the area. I'm doing this really, really quickly and unaccurately. Let's just do that really, really fast. And oops, what I can do is go back because as you saw, I missed out his oh I missed out his neck. Right, so we're going to quickly select his face. That would give us the option to work on anything to do with brightness or anything like that. But once I've selected the area, I then have the option to work on this particular space, but to fill it in. You don't actually have to select the area to fill it. It depends if you think the colour will bleed, which you can see it might do here. So I can get the colour picker And let's say that I think actually his hand is the colour it's meant to be. So I can pick the colour of his hand, and then I can get the bucket tool, choose one of these white spaces and fill it. So, I mean, I haven't chosen the right colour there, but hopefully you get the principle of how I could do this. Scanners have a tendency to bleach areas out. So with choosing a better colour than I just did, you can see how you can fill in areas that have been bleached. At the moment, this obviously doesn't look very good, but hopefully you get the idea. So you can pick a colour and put it where it needs to be if you've got an issue and you're looking at the original and going, it doesn't look all weird and blotchy, let's change that. What I actually didn't do there, if I go back to that free select, I selected his face, but actually I can take out his eye. And what I can do is I can press Command. It's probably different on a Windows machine, it might be Control. I hold down Command as I draw around his eye, and then that's going to remove, hopefully you can see over there, it's removed his eye from the selection so that whatever I'm doing isn't going to bleed into the whites of his eyes. So you can remove areas from a selection as well. So you can work over the image, correcting colours, cleaning up, sharpening it up, doing all the things that you feel need to be done if you're looking at this piece and thinking, this does not look how it should. So when I've done these, I've made various different changes. On this particular piece, if I zoom out, what did I change on this? So I did add some pinkiness onto his face. The blues here were a little bit green, and the sky here was not quite right. So I had to use the curves and do some bits and pieces in with the sky. So sometimes with an image there are odds and ends that you need to do. It depends how particular you are. I am quite particular, but that's how to use those particular tools if you needed to. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you, and what I'm going to do is import one of my Gimp files and kind of explain what I've done because it takes a long time to do, so instead I'm going to show you a finished one. Okay, here you are. I've probably done this 3 or 4 times, and it will be where a particular image has lost an area. So in this particular one, this is from Secret Seagrass Areas, what had happened is all of this around the roots in the scan was completely and utterly bleached out, all of this here. There was just nothing. And if there's something, I'm able to, maybe darken it a little bit or change the colour of it and things like that to make it more noticeable. But if there's nothing, then I can't, I can't paint it in. That's not my job. So what I do is I create some layers. So what I've done is I've got a photograph and I've got a scan. So let me show you what I mean. So that, with the visibility turned off, that is the scan. I have rubbed out the bleached out areas. So you do that with the eraser and you can set it so that you've got a transparent background, and you can rub that out. So I think you have to layer, where is it? Transparency. So let me explain that better. When you've got your scan in there, you go into transparency, you say add alpha channel, and then when you rub it out, basically it rubs out to transparent rather than to white. So I've done that. I've removed the area where I want to be able to see through it. Then what I've done, if I get rid of the scan and I show the photograph. So this is a photograph, I believe, taken with an iPhone. The more recent iPhones have got a good enough resolution to be able to use them. So you can see that lovely texture is there in the photograph. Now, because I had used scans for the rest of the book, if I suddenly then switched to the photograph, there would be a noticeable change in the finish. So I didn't want to do that. All the colours looked different, everything looked different. So I didn't want to just use a photograph for this one. That wasn't going to work for me. It might work for you. But what I wanted to do was use the scan, but just use the photograph for these areas. So with both layers showing, you can see that the photograph is showing through underneath. Now, what I will have done is with the photograph, I will have gone in and changed the colours so that they match up really nicely with the scan. So I will have really manipulated that photograph to make sure that it matches and all of that sits really, really nicely in the scan, and that all of that looks how it should. It's all lined up. you know, everything is as it should be and it's reproduced in the way that the original looks. I've used this a few times where, as I say, these bits get bleached out, and the only solution really is to get an image where that area isn't bleached out and sit that behind the other one that you want to use. So just wanted to show you that is an option. It is fiddly. As I say, you might want to just use a photograph. There are pros and cons to photographs and scans. So whether this is a solution for you or not, I don't know. But if you've got to that point where you think, oh my goodness, like this area here was completely white, and I think, you know, oh, what am I going to do? It doesn't look right at all. It looks really, really rubbish. In fact, I wonder if I can find that scan. I'm going to have a quick look. Here we go. I believe that this is it. So you can see that all of that is just lost and isn't really there. And no matter how much I manipulated it, I wasn't getting any luck in making that look any better. I even got the scanner to change the settings. The guy changed all of the different settings. We tried everything and it just wasn't reappearing. So as I say, what you do have as an option is to layer up different images in that instance where you're missing an area. So I think if I go back to Gimp, that is all of the tools that I wanted to show you. So you can brighten the whole thing up using brightness. You can change the colours if you need to. In fact, you've got a few different colour tools that you can play with. Curves is quite clever as well. You can clean different bits up, sort of heal them. You can fill areas. And all of that has to be done very respectfully of the artist, making sure that you are not changing, you are just ensuring it's an accurate reproduction of the original piece of artwork. You've also got selection tools here, so lots of different bits and pieces. Hopefully that gives you lots of tools to try, and I would say the best thing to do is to have a play, see what things do, go to extremes with things. So for example, if I was changing the colours, I'm going to go, what happens if I go really red? I haven't got an area selected, but kind of go, okay, so right, I see what that does, and then you can go in more gently. As a final thing to say, once you are done and you are happy, then make sure that you see a proof and you look at that proof next to the artwork as well, in case you have really messed things up. It's worthwhile having a file history and a change log so that if you have done something and you need to revert back, you are able to. You really don't want to have taken their artwork and completely destroyed it with unprofessional editing. So be careful, keep lots of files and make sure that you see a proof just in case once it's printed out, it doesn't look anything like you thought that it would on screen. Also, it is possible to speak to your printing company and ask for their settings that you are able to set your screen at. I have to say with my particular laptop, it's not going to be able to do that. But if you have a decent monitor and you want to have it set up so that your settings are going to be accurate compared to the print company's output, you can ask them for that to make sure that what you're seeing on screen is more accurate. I have definitely ordered a proof and looked at it and gone, I need to have a rethink on the way that I've changed some of those things. So tread carefully. You do have options for fixing things that have been lost in the digitization process or that haven't been replicated very well. Hopefully that's given you lots and lots of different tools to do those things. It is tricky. There are lots and lots of bits and pieces on the internet. There are YouTube tutorials, there are help forums that can tell you how to use the different tools, and that's how I figured out how to do these things. I've given you the ones that I use the most, so hopefully that's going to cover you for an awful lot of eventualities.
So I hope that you found that helpful. I personally find Gimp much easier to use than Photoshop, and it's free. My personal opinion. If you have used this software and you've got any suggestions, tips or tricks, you use it in a different way to me, you know of good videos, good resources, please do drop them below. We all learn from each other, and as I said at the start of the video, I'm not a graphic designer. This is all stuff that I've worked out, so As I say, I really hope that this is helpful to you. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. I make lots of videos like this. There's a big old playlist of indie publishing tips and tricks that's got lots of stuff if you are producing a book. And if you found this video helpful, please do like. I'll see you all soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Take care.